spare a thought for the 60% of us who can't join you all in Shadow of the Erd Tree, because we never beat Moog. Elden Ring Shadow of the Erd Tree at mixed reviews because it's too hard. Even Elden Ring's game director knows Erd Tree is too hard.
Why are you crying?
I'll give it another shot today, because I usually try to give it like 2 tries before I give up. I know myself, right? And maybe try and adapt a little bit, do a few different things, but then otherwise, I'm pretty much just done, right? And I think that this is like more of a collective thing, is that I'm done playing games that are like really hard on stream. Like, I don't want to do that anymore. And I don't want to do it anymore.
Loser! You're a loser! Are you feeling sorry for yourself? Well, you shouldn't be, because you are dirt! You make me sick, you big baby! Baby want a bottle? A big Estus flask?
So like any game that's like very challenging or like hard to the point to where like I get to this way, I just don't want to play it anymore. I just don't. Like, I don't have the mental and emotional energy to do it anymore.
Beta!
It's only brought me...
You don't understand. Why are you doing this, bro? I haven't did shit.
Unhappiness.
Unhappiness.
Clean up your room. That's a good start.
I'll tell you what, Asmon. I'll present you a challenge. How about this? How about, instead of having the same boring, tired-ass streams you've had since you've been playing World of Warcraft, how about we spice things up? Actually make it entertaining for the audience. That way the editor doesn't have to work too hard. How about each and every single time you die in Elden Ring, you have to pick up a piece of trash in your room.
That's my character. I'm the trash man.
You may not see it now, but I'm doing you both a favor in your real life and your social media life. And it would make for some great edits. You may not see this, but your editor probably will. Trust me, email me, it would be entertaining. Other than that, though, if you don't want to take my suggestion, there's a man who recently has been playing Elden Ring for like only 2 months, and you may be familiar with him. And, well, if you don't want to listen to me because of the limited clout I have, you might want to listen to this.
It's a skill issue. I'm assing your ass. But your ass, though. Because you really, like, say this too hard. Nigga, put your big boy pants on, go out there, and go fight. Like, what are you talking about? Like, here's the thing, right? This is the first major release since the actual game 2 years ago, correct? Yes or no? If you went through all that hassle 2 years ago, why the f*** a DLC for you to breeze past and be done with in a day or two? Make it make sense, my nigga.
Wise words for the man who started a riot in New York City and who I barely discovered last year. Everybody has good advice. At least one piece of good advice, anyway. I mean, I wouldn't have gone with the leopard carpet, but that thing Kai Cenat said about Elden Ring, now that's good advice. And honestly, I think it's advice Asmon should take into account, which he probably has, but if we're being perfectly fair here, it's not like Asmongold is being unreasonable. The guy has put a lot of thought behind his criticisms of Elden Ring. He has actually thought about this, unlike, you know, the bald black dude's name, something TV.
Elden Ring. Essentially, I don't buy this game. The name of the game should not be called Elden Ring. The name of the game should be called You Die. Again and again and again. Because that's all you're really going to spend most of your time doing. You're going to die because the game has no easy difficulty. The difficulty spikes when you get to certain bosses. It's so unfair that you'll find yourself spending so many hours losing time away from your life. So I would say this game is for somebody who really is looking for a sandbox. They have no family, no friends, no life.
And I also want to start off that, well, to his credit, even though he complained, the man is still playing the DLC. He's not being a pussy like this jackass who decides to rage quit after finally beating one boss.
I'm gonna be honest with you guys, I just don't care. I really don't. Like, I don't feel like doing the thing I used to do. Like, let's try these weapons, let's go respec. Let's try this. I just don't care. I really don't. And I know for a fact we can't play it on stream. We didn't get great results today to begin with. That could be spoilers, but it also is... I just think most people want to watch the big guys scream and yell and rage out. And so if I'm going to have to play this off stream, that's not going to happen. Go ahead and delete that.
No, what the heck, I'll laugh anyway.
Yeah, you start to notice this pattern. It's mainly streamers who have an issue with the game. Isn't it funny how streamers all think the game should adapt to them and their streaming career? That's not a coincidence. Streamers are cancer when it comes to game input. They forget that people actually play games as a hobby. Novel concept, I know. Like DSP, for example. On one hand, you have people complaining that the difficulty is too hard and it's unfair, and yet DSP is here beating a boss.
Fuck you. Jump R2.
So if DSP can do that, what excuses do you have? I've seen people with no fingers beat this game, so the excuses are running dry. The funny part is both Reforge and DSP are able to beat the game, and yet they still decide to put it down, uninstall, and act like it's physically too hard. That's not the path Asmongold's going to take, thankfully, because at the very least, when it comes to Asmongold, his arguments don't solely boil down to where. There is some legitimate and fair criticism there. The problem is, however, it's a 30+ minute long video, and there's an hour-long version too. And the second problem is this for Tango Plays, we're here to provide salt and cringe. I mainly really just want to highlight the parts I disagreed with, because if you're gonna be somebody who pans others for using summons and certain builds and weapons because you think that's cheesing the game when they're just really playing by the game's rules, I think it's pretty fair to rip apart some of these arguments. When Yang Ye, the man who ruined the English dub of Kiryu, has a better take on the matter of difficulty with Elden Ring than you do, then I gotta respond to it. That's not an L I could let anyone live down.
It's not the character, not the camera, and you beat it, so... Well, what's the logic there? So if I can beat a game, that makes the game good? If I can beat Atari on the... if I can beat ET on Atari, does that mean ET on Atari is good? Think about what you're saying.
No, Asmon, think about what you are saying. In what world is this comparable to ET on the Atari? I understand you're in a live setting. This is off the top of your head. It's not scripted. There's no thought put beforehand. But right off the bat, ET for the Atari. We're talking about a whole different type of difficulty. There's difficulty that is fair, and then there is difficulty because the video game is poorly programmed. Every single person is perfectly capable of beating the bosses in Elden Ring. Very few are capable of beating ET because it's, well, awful. It's like playing Fester's Quest on the NES. We're not talking about a type of difficulty that was there to artificially pad out the length of these games to try and justify their price. It was a different time. You're not going to see From Software bury millions of copies of Elden Ring out in a landfill dump. This game is not going to make From Software go bankrupt. If we're going to do a difficulty comparison, we're not going to pull out ET. Your thought process is, well, just because you can beat it, that doesn't mean it's good. And you would be correct. If only 1 out of 1,000,000 people can beat this game, then yes, you have a valid point. But literally, people with no fingers can beat this. Kaisenat can beat this. DSP can beat this. Which goes to show you that it's actually pretty well balanced. It's designed for everyone to be capable. The human ability to adapt to situations in this game is reflected in almost even the worst of gamers. When a developer can design something that almost everyone can find universally difficult, and yet they're all capable of beating, I would argue you've hit the sweet spot. That's probably what that commentator meant by, well, it's good because you can beat it. It implies it's fair because it is. When gamers like DSP who complain about everything not being fair and it's not his fault, dude, snort, can get past the line, then you know it's sound design, because DSP is an idiot. If idiots can overcome the challenge, it's pretty rock solid design. It's a fine tuning in the difficulty that most video games cannot pull off. Because when you design something like this, you have to ensure it can be beaten by anyone who simply tries. It's not solely good because it can be beaten. It's good because it can be beaten with effort. It presents a great challenge to a wide range of gamers with different levels of skill. Some people simply do not understand how much we take this for granted. It takes a certain level of genius to be able to program anything like that.
I think people are so desperate to protect their gaming achievements that they're unwilling to look at anything logically. It's not an achievement that you beat a boss in a video game. It was programmed for you to beat it. Think about it a little bit more, man.
For fuck's sakes, I'm having trouble talking to you, but I am smart.
All right, calm down, Asmon. I can tell you're a little salty. Someone presented to you a very reasonable point that agitated you. So you throw shade at people who are proud they overcame a challenge, which isn't something you should ever take away from anyone. You want to say it's not a personal achievement for those people to have beaten a boss in a video game because it was programmed. Yeah, no shit. Video games are programmed to be beaten. It's the effort, the willpower that people are proud of, in spite of all the rage and spite of failing over and over again. There's a sense of pride and accomplishment when they push through that, which is why a lot of people play video games. I mean, no shit, it's programmed. Wow, that's brilliant insight, Asmon. I'll tell you what's not an accomplishment. Playing World of Warcraft for nearly over 20 years nonstop. That is not impressive. That's sad. You want to know what an accomplishment is, Asmon? Cleaning your goddamn room. Well, for you anyway, because everybody has their own personal accomplishments. If somebody struggled with Moog for like days and they beat him, that accomplishment means something different to that person than it does to you. If you were to clean your room, it would be an achievement for you. When I do it, it's just a daily chore. Likewise with Shadow of the Erd Tree, for many, it's a personal achievement because the game still requires you to try, it requires you to play, it requires you to put forward effort. You don't just press X and the game beats itself. You have to do all of that. So when you do get to the end, you feel like you overcame your own personal doubts. You didn't think you could get past it, but you did. And that sense of achievement is just as valid. It's a very real feeling that you can't take away from people by saying, well, it was programmed. It's the most brainless take I ever heard from Asmon. And I mean, also objectively speaking, it is an achievement because you get an achievement for beating some bosses in the game or the game overall. So objectively, it is an achievement.
So whenever a fight gets like really, really hard, I feel like the way that I can play the game becomes more limited. So basically, like the harder something is, the less options you have to solve a problem, right? So because you can't use those options because they're not optimal. And I think that whenever something becomes so hard that I feel like I have to play in one way, it makes it less enjoyable for me. Because I feel like I am executing effectively like a 3-minute cheat code.
Yes, but that would be cheating.
Cheating! I'm cheating.
If you're referring to how you switched to the shield and how you've been steamrolling over bosses with your new playstyle that you've been posting clips of, then can you really say the game is too hard? You opted to stick with that setup. Others don't have to do that. I've seen plenty of people beat the game without the cheesy hammer. Hell, I've gone through bosses with the exact same setup I've had since my last playthrough. It is true what Asmon says, not every single option is optimal, but I wouldn't call that bad. Like, it should be a no-brainer. Nobody should be fighting these bosses with the most inconvenient of builds and setups. People only do that for fun. Like, the game does give you the tools to make your life easier. And if you feel shame and making it easier for yourself, then what would be the point in complaining about it being too hard? The game has given you tools to make your experience easier for your stream so you don't feel all down and sad, and you took them. You understood that your current playstyle needed to evolve. You couldn't just roll your way out of everything. You used your brain and discovered parrying and using shields. It doesn't devalue anything. It doesn't make it cheating. You may not be a fan of doing it this way, but nobody's forcing you to either. Like, for instance, in this clip where you've discovered a different way of taking out the Furnace Giant through the new playstyle you've decided to adapt with, other players like me took a completely different approach where blocking isn't what we have to do. It's not narrowed down to where you can only beat it this way. So I'm not really convinced Asmon has to force himself to play the game a way he doesn't want. He's only playing it that way to lessen the difficulty on himself, which, by the way, is fine, but I would definitely not say is a flaw of the game design. It's a flaw in Asmon's approach.
And I've been getting that with this DLC, and yeah, there are moments where I'm like, what the fuck? But I miss that feeling. To give an example,
the only real criticism that I have for the bosses, outside of like being big and like bad camera angles, I don't even think it's the attack patterns. I just don't like how aggressive they are, because it makes learning to fight really unfun. Because like you're constantly trying to run away and like heal, but the mob is just like pursuing you and attacking you constantly. Yeah, you have no time to heal. I don't like that at all. It's just very stressful for me, and it makes learning to fight not enjoyable.
Baby, want a bottle? A big
Estus Flask! See, what's happening there is you're poorly timing when to use your Crimson. It's a mistake all players make. Enemies have very aggressive attack patterns. They give you very little room to breathe because, well, it's supposed to be a challenge. If they gave you enough time to constantly sip on your flask, everyone would complain. You're not an inexperienced player by any means. You know the rules. You know how aggressive enemies can be. Don't push in so far that you make getting out of the mob hard. I mean, honestly, I know it seems insulting, but telling a player they should think is really the only response I have to this complaint. He doesn't have to like the design, but he already knows how it works. The key is to be aggressive in return and don't put yourself in a situation where you're easily outnumbered. Like, players make this mistake a lot, but it doesn't mean it's bad. You don't have to like it, but I'm wondering what the other option for you would be. What, to make it easier? Anyways, I don't want to sit here for 2 hours responding to the whole thing because it'd come off as nitpicky and obsessive, and there's no point in that. Not everything is worth replying to. And at the end of the day, these are just one man's opinions. If he doesn't like the difficulty, that's fine. And the man shouldn't be attacked for having that opinion. We have options when it comes to video games. People can play a wide range of different genres. However, it's this little attitude he has at the end. It's the most soy-induced rant I've ever heard from Asmon. To see a guy who's been made a millionaire sitting playing video games all day, trying to lecture people on achievements, well, it doesn't sit right with me. And it's mainly why I wanted to make the video. Asmongold Salt is something else.
I think that the reason why games like Elden Ring and why Dark Souls, why they're such great games, I think that the community is stupid for thinking that they're hard. I do. I think that they're stupid because the reason why these games were successful and great was never because they were hard.
You look a little pale there, pal. Let me fix that.
Because I think that a lot of times people that play games, they view being able to beat the game as basically like a proof that the game is good or that the game is not bad. But the truth is that people can speedrun any game and beat it pretty much hitless and it's not a big deal, but that does not make the game good.
Absolutely not. Speedrunning and zero-hit runs are not to prove the game is good. Those are to prove how good players are. Nobody's actually playing Elden Ring that way as a testament to its quality. Honestly, feels like Asmon completely pulled that one out of his ass.
There's so much of people's ego that gets caught up in the difficulty conversation that you can't accurately have it without having a tremendous amount of dishonesty. Because people are, it's like it turns into an insult, it turns into, oh, you're bad, or oh, this is overpowered, or this is too hard, and nobody actually looks at what the boss does and how it behaves, and whether this behavior is fun to overcome or not.
Ugh, this sounds very familiar. Surprisingly, I got some pushback on Twitter. People said, no, he has a point. You're wrong, Frit. You have less subscribers. And yet, 2 years ago, this was the exact same argument Jim Stephanie Styling made. And I got no pushback when I called him out on it. Funny how that works, isn't it? It's the same tired argument. Nobody cares. Nobody's impressed that you beat these bosses. It's not an achievement. It's just a video game. It's programmed for you to beat it. This is a take that comes out of spite from Asmongold. He doesn't like that he gets pushback from his own audience. Now, he claims ego. That's the real problem here, is people's ego over beating these bosses, which makes no sense because Asmongold is one of the dudes who was out here being critical of how people decide to beat the game with their own stupid arbitrary rules like, oh, no summons. I think what we're seeing here is a little bit of projection because Asmongold realizes he's that person he's criticizing. Chose to stick to a play style because he doesn't believe in using certain tools of the game because it feels cheesy. Now that is a completely ego-driven approach to how you played this game.
So it's like the difference between like playing something and feeling fulfilled for it versus playing something and, just being able to beat it. I think that people look at beating it as like an accomplishment, and this is, again, I think this is like a certain degree of like gamer delusion where it's like the boss is programmed to lose, right? It's like it's programmed for you to beat it. It's just, you input the codes, you do these attacks, you do this thing, and the boss dies, right?
Right, but you're also forgetting that the boss is also programmed to win. The hell kind of logic is this? People really nodded their heads along to that? They really thought, oh, that's a good point, Asmon. The game's programmed to be beaten, so therefore, your achievements aren't legit. While completely dismissing the fact that, yeah, the boss is also programmed to kick your ass and ensure winning over them isn't easy. It's the most brainless take I've ever heard from Asmon. It comes from a place of pure copium. And I hate seeing it because I don't really have a thing against Asmon. It's just very soy-induced and hits far too close to what Jim Sterling said, which I completely disagree with. I know it may be hard for you to believe, Asmon, but people have fun going through this. Just because you didn't doesn't mean the fun others had isn't legit and their sense of accomplishment isn't legit.
And I think that people take that too seriously and they treat it like it's like they actually accomplished something. Where it's like, I think that getting an ego from video game accomplishments is kind of a dangerous thing. Because whenever you're getting an ego from a video game accomplishment, it's like you're basically priding yourself on being able to do something that was programmed for you to be able to do it. I find it to be a bad thing.
I mean, developing an ego in general is cringe, but dangerous? This is the last time an egotistical gamer caused any actual physical real-world harm. Calm down there, Kotaku. The only danger an egotistical gamer poses is to, like, their keyboard and controller or monitor. Yeah, you heard what Asmon said. Gamers shouldn't feel proud of beating that boss they were stuck on for a full week. That's dangerous. Patting yourself on the back, being proud that you were able to do that, that's a no-no. Very, very, very dangerous. I think we're done here. All right, I'm not going to be dismissive of his own opinions on the DLC. If he didn't like it, that's fine. But trying to put down people for feeling good about beating a boss, that's just pathetic. Like, you can't really take that away from people. And no, it's not dangerous. Tell you what is dangerous is the amount of sugary drinks you've consumed and leave sitting on your table for months collecting mold that you're breathing in and attracting roaches. Now that is dangerous. And it would probably do you some good to have an ego. If you had an ego, you wouldn't allow shit to build up like that. Disgusting. I legitimately cannot believe Yang Ye looked like less of a soy boy in your response to him than you did. Now that's an achievement. Oh, and you can hang on your wall if you want to. Of course, clean the wall. Anyways, this video is gonna piss off a lot of people. It's all fun and games till you involve ya boy. Not Asmongold's best take, but not the worst takes I've ever heard. I just enjoy that sacred Elden salt. And if you did too, then like, comment, share, and subscribe if you so choose to. To hell with it. I'm out of here. See you in the next one.
Fritongo sucks ass.